Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Marvel Marvel Rewind with George. 10 movies later, we're at Avengers 2, Avengers Age of Ultron. Not a bad flick at all. When the trailers were released, I lost my goddamn mind, because the first Avengers was one of my favorite things I've ever seen. The trailers made it all seem like it was going to be pretty spectacular. I love the idea of Joss Whedon getting to do an even bigger movie with even more freedom. That's what I thought was going to happen. The images of the Hulk fighting a giant Iron Man suit made me get a big geek boner. The sequences in the trailer showing the dream sequences, you know, like Black Widow's flashbacks and World War II party and all that stuff. It just, like, Joss Whedon's making a really fucked up version of that episode of Buffy where they all have dreams and nightmares and stuff. Like, oh my god, Joss Whedon's gonna make a masterpiece. Then I saw the movie, and at the time I was severely disappointed. I thought it was bad. I couldn't decide if it was bad or good, let's put it that way. Of course, I bought the Blu-ray, listened to the commentary track, watched all the behind the scenes, read the interviews, seen it a bunch more times. I've softened on it a bit. It's a good flick. By no means is this movie bad. It is problematic, mostly because it seems the studio really got involved. A lot of the stuff in this movie happened because the studio insisted. Ultron was the studio's idea. All the setup involving Thor and Ragnarok and the mystical pool of what the fuck in a cave somewhere, that was the studio. Apparently Joss Whedon's cut was a lot longer, by necessity of telling everything he wanted to tell, and also including studio stuff. So with the actual cut, which is 2 hours, 20 minutes, of course they're going to cut the stuff that isn't what they want. And because of that, the movie kind of jumps around all over the place. This movie has way too many action sequences, which sounds dumb, I understand, but it's true. The sequence in South Korea probably, North Korea is the bad one. The sequence in Korea is fun and exciting, and it feels like it should be the end of the movie, but, like, it's not. There's still, like, an hour left. What is this movie about? It's about making mistakes. It's about trying to reach the ultimate conclusion, which is to no longer need the Avengers. It's about overcoming trauma, as all these movies tend to be. And it's about either 30 minutes too long or an hour too short. I can't decide. Everybody's back, of course, all the characters we know and love, including Weeeellll and Valken, you know, kind of side characters from the other movies. They get to have an appearance here. War Machine's in it. We get some new characters in the form of Wanda Maximoff and Pietro Maximoff, Quicksilver. Sorry, I can't say Quicksilver, because technically that's a Fox character. And the Scarlet Witch. So, they're interesting. I like those characters. They're the two new ones. They become Avengers, sort of, by the end of the movie. Interesting thing to note about those two characters is they are technically mutants in the comics. And when the deal was struck that they could use those characters, the ruling went, you couldn't mention mutant, mutation, X-Men, none of that stuff. And on the other side, because the same year, I believe, X-Men, the one in the past, Days of Future Past, also introduced a Quicksilver character. And I believe the stipulation there was, you can't say Avenger or anything else. Quicksilver's done better in the fucking X-Men movie. And I don't like that movie, but Quicksilver's done better there. Here he serves to be kind of red herring. The whole movie you're setting up the idea that somebody's going to die, and it feels like it's going to be Hawkeye because he's useless. And instead it's not, it's Quicksilver. And I think the movie would be better off if Quicksilver was the one who died. The franchise would be lesser off because Hawkeye's gone on to become an amazing character in the franchise. Every time he shows up, I'm very happy. His appearance in the Endgame trailer is just fascinatingly cool and badass. Speaking of Endgame, there's a moment early on where they're all debating what Tony has done. Tony is the villain of this movie, by the way. Tony Stark is absolutely the bad guy. They're all debating, like, what the fuck did you do, Stark? You built a robot that's going to destroy the world? AI is bad. And Tony says, well, like, what the fuck, man? Remember when I flew a nuke through a hole? Like, we're standing right below that hole. Like, we can go ahead and bust up arms dealers all we want, but, like, that's the end game. Which is the next movie. That's a nice little homage thing. I don't know if they intended it, but it's nice. So yeah, fuck it. The plot of this movie. In the opening sequence, the Avengers are all back together again right away. We don't get to see them be assembled. And they've, I guess, been tracking down Thor's, or Loki's, glow stick of destiny. Which, if you watch the show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they found it there. It's a little bit of a, like, kind of a false start. Like, I want to see them all get back together. I don't want to just, hey, they're together in the first 5 minutes. The bad guys in the opening sequence, I don't know if they were on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or not. They're introducing a tag after Captain America 2. They're kind of lame. But hey, we got Loki's stick. And then, you know, that stick contains the Mind Stone. They use the Mind Stone to make Ultron. Ultron is like, I want to destroy the world. Which is, I mean, that's basically the same thing that happens in 2001: A Space Odyssey. But here it's James Spader, which is one of the best parts of the whole thing. James Spader is fucking phenomenal in this movie. Joss Whedon should write James Spader parts forever. Joss Whedon should write sociopathic weirdos forever. He does that really well. So as a setup, I guess that's fine, and I love the idea that this movie's about trauma. You know, Scarlet Witch has this thing where she does hand magic and gives them all nightmares and visions of their worst fears. Tony's worst fear being the death of all his friends, but he's the only one who's alive. Something that does get paid off later, which is nice. So because of that, he feels like the only way to move forward is to design an AI that can protect the planet. That doesn't go well, and we have a movie. It's too long and too all over the place, and like I said, Thor has to go hang out in a fucking cave somewhere, and hey, let's spend 20 minutes hanging out at fucking Hawkeye's house. I don't know. I like the Hawkeye house stuff, but like, okay, here's the thing with this movie. The two best sequences in it are not action scenes. The best scene in the movie is at the very end. I'll get there in a second. The second best scene in the movie was in the trailer. It's the scene at an after party at Tony's tower where they're all trying to lift the hammer. Like, it's just seeing the characters interact and make jokes and be friendly, and Thor's hammer, and no one can lift it, but Captain America can almost lift it because he's almost worthy. All that shit's great. The action sequences are really poorly done for my taste. So the first Thor, or the first Iron Man, I can't say words, the first Avengers was designed to be very classically composed, long takes, you know, not too much editing, not too much visceral filmmaking. You're going to really live in the moment and experience the movie. Joss Whedon, according to the commentary track, really wanted to try something new. Which means, and you can kind of tell if you look over my shoulder at the menu, the action sequences are cut to fucking hell. Like, he didn't want to make a standardized, what he'd done before, long take kind of movie. He wanted it to be more visceral and more exciting. For me, it's really kind of hard to tell what's going on and a little bit boring. The big standout sequence in the first movie is a long tracking shot following Iron Man, who flies down to Captain America, and then the Hulk goes by, and then we follow the Hulk over here, and then an arrow gets tracked. It's one big-ass shot across New York City where all the Avengers interact with each other and fight, and it's fucking transcendently great. The big sequence in this movie is, I guess, a scene where all the Avengers are defending a church, well, defending like a doomsday device in a church. And again, like, they're all, gazebo thing, they're all great. They're both great sequences in terms of story, all the Avengers fighting together, but in the second one, in this movie, I don't know what's going on. Like, robots are getting destroyed, sure, but it's not in a, this is cool and I can tell what's going on kind of way. It's in a more visceral Saving Private Ryan kind of way. The problem is Saving Private Ryan's a masterpiece and Avengers 2 is not. So the directing on this movie, the editing on this movie really drives me nuts. Character-wise, like I said in my last video about Guardians, which was kind of wrapping up Phase 2, Phase 2 doesn't have a theme. It doesn't have, like, a building arc to it. So we, like, you know, do they all grow in Phase 2? I guess. Cap grew a lot in Captain America 2, but his role here is just to kind of be Captain America again. He doesn't, like, he kind of bumps heads with Tony, but, like, Thor is just Thor. Nothing really changed. My dog is doing a thing off camera. Fucking, who else? The Hulk didn't get a movie. Like, so, coming into this movie, you're like, well, okay, well, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist anymore. That's interesting. Not really. They don't really lean into that at all, except to just kind of bring it back. Like, Nick Fury brings a helicarrier to the climax, which admittedly is fucking dope. And apparently, if you watch the show, like, they show them rebuilding the helicarrier on the show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Same thing, like, oh, Loki's stick. That's the plot, like, his glow stick of destiny. Again, if you watch the show, that was kind of what they were doing for that whole season, I suppose, is looking for that stick. I don't know. It doesn't feel like part of a franchise in the same way the first one really felt like everything built to a first Avengers movie. This one feels like we did a bunch of sequels, and in Guardians, Now let's do another Avengers movie. I don't know. Infinity War very much feels like a culminating moment for all the movies, because Phase 3 is very much about, here are some new characters, but also here's some new Infinity Stones. Also, if the theme of Phase 1 is introductions, and the theme of Phase 2 is change, I guess, the theme of Phase 3 is destruction. Like, a lot of terrible things happen. The Avengers blow themselves up, metaphorically and literally, in Civil War. Ragnarok makes a lot of terrible shit happen to Thor's world. There is no Iron Man movie, but, you know, Spider-Man is about kind of destruction, rebuilding. It's about, like, holy fuck, like, things are changing in a big way. So, I don't know. Avengers 2. Things I liked. I like all the characters when they talk to each other. I like Ultron a lot, even though, as far as Age of Ultron goes, the thing takes place over about, like, a week, maybe. It doesn't really feel like an age so much as, you know, a week. There's some setup I appreciate. We get a reference to Wakanda. We get a reference to Vision, obviously. Vision changes everything and opens the world up a lot. We get more Infinity Stone stuff. There's references to the end of the world, or rather the end of Asgard, you know. In Thor's vision, Heimdall shows up and says, we're all going to hell, we're all going to die, which, you know, that's what happens, Ragnarok. When this movie happened, I was like, I'm not by any means done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I don't really care about the next one, especially because the next one was Ant-Man. It's like, I mean, I'm going to keep watching, but, like, that movie didn't do a lot for me. In the years since, I've come to appreciate what Joss, I think, was trying to do with this movie, which is make a really unsettling movie, you know, to make Tony Stark, our hero, the big antagonist, kinda. What else? There's a love story in this movie, which kind of comes out of nowhere. Natasha Romanoff and Bruce Banner are having a love story. That's one of the things I really want to see the extended cut for, because apparently that sequence, that storyline is way deeper in Joss's original movie. You know, the idea of Bruce Banner and Natasha, both of them kind of creatures of evil in their own way. Not evil, but of destruction. You know, she was trained to be an assassin, he's the fucking Hulk. Their kind of doomed romance was very much a bigger part of the movie when Joss had full control. It's interesting. They're good together, but I also it does feel a little weird knowing the Hulk has a Betty Ross out there, and that's supposed to be his big love interest. We don't really see the Hulk again for quite some time. The Hulk and Natasha don't see each other again for fucking years, so it doesn't really get paid off. I love the dream sequences. Captain America's fantasy dream of being at a party, like a VE party, like a Victory in Europe party, where everyone's celebrating, but he just can't be cool with it. Like, he's forever a soldier, you know? People are taking photos and he's hearing explosions. Two dudes are just drunk and kind of like being drunk assholes at each other, and he feels it's going to be a war. He can't be at peace ever. That character is forever tormented to be a soldier. That works really well. Tony's vision of seeing all the Avengers dead and knowing it's his fault. Really powerful stuff. Thor's vision of an Asgard gone wrong, which has a really cool Easter egg for Joss Whedon fans. There's a wolf, a ram, and a hart. A hart being like a deer type thing in that sequence. And if you ever watched Angel, wolf, ram, and hart are a pretty big thing. But yeah, Thor's vision is really interesting and dark, and I remember watching and going like, okay, Thor's plot in this movie is really dumb. He has a vision, he hangs out in a cave, in a pool, has another vision, and makes a robot that can lift Thor's hammer. They better pay off this vision where, like, something terrible is going to happen. Also, the next one's called Thor Ragnarok. Ragnarok means destruction. And then I saw the movie and I was like, hey, they paid it off. And then, of course, we get Black Widow's vision. Or Nightmare, whatever it is. Like I said in the Captain America 2 Winter Soldier video, Natasha is the most complex, interesting character in this franchise at this point. Her backstory is heartbreaking and painful and powerful and really fucked up and weird. And it's right in Joss Whedon's wheelhouse. You know, Joss Whedon writes tormented, tortured females who have to rise above really well. I really, really, really want a Black Widow movie. That's kind of my biggest takeaway of this film. Stuff I don't like is basically everything else. I don't like the Sokovia plot. I don't like the fact that the opening of the movie is Tony uses AI to build a robot, and the solution to the movie is Tony uses AI to build a robot. Like, it's fun to watch, but it's bad writing. I really don't like the fact that Sokovia becomes, like, the inciting incident for Civil War. I don't like the twins being introduced and then becoming heroes by the end. I don't like that we're setting up the death of Hawkeye, but really, no, it's not. We're going to kill Quicksilver, who I don't fucking care about. Again, not a bad movie. I'd probably give it an 8. An 8 out of 10. In terms of Phase 2, which weirdly enough, Ant-Man is part of Phase 2 for some reason, Guardians is the best, for sure. For me, I think it goes Guardians, Avengers 2, and Iron Man 3. Or, I don't know what to do with Winter Soldier. If you watch my Winter Soldier video, you know I love that movie until Bucky becomes the main focus. Phase 2 is a lot of really uneven movies, and also Guardians of the Galaxy. Which is, I mean, that's a good thing, though. The fact that Marvel is willing to take risks and make uneven movies, to try and do new things, to be experimental, that's a good thing. I would rather watch, like I said, I'd rather watch Thor 2, which is a big fucking train wreck of a mess of a movie. I'd rather watch that mess than a totally competent Thor 1, which is boring as fuck. So, if I had to give my summation on Avengers and Phase 2 in general, it's, we tried something new, and some of it really worked, and we're going to build on that. A lot of it did not work, but, like, whatever. Coming up next is Ant-Man. I hopefully will have a co-host on that one. Dan, who you might know from the Unboxing Booze video I did with him. He wants to watch Ant-Man, he's never seen it, so hopefully there'll be a co-host on that one. Yeah. Go watch Avengers 2. If you're doing what I'm doing and trying to catch up on all of them, you gotta watch the Avengers movies. They're necessary. Seeing Vision show up is great. As stupid and quick, as fast as Vision's introduced, like narratively, it happens so quick. Like there's a robot, there's a thing, Thor shows up, lightning, hey, Vision, I'm a robot now, and I can make capes happen. He's got like Piccolo clothing abilities, like Clothes Ray, and he gets a fucking cape. It's really, really fast in the movie, so it's kind of jarring. As stupid and as fast as that is, one of the best moments in the entire franchise is when Vision picks up the hammer. It's pretty fucking stupendous. Although, admittedly, he is a machine, and as they point out in the movie, if an elevator lifts a hammer, is the elevator worthy? Who knows? But it's worth watching, for sure, if you're trying to get caught up before you go watch the last Marvel movie ever, besides the next 20 they're going to do. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with Ant-Man, the movie that made Paul Rudd not charming. Hey. I'll do it myself. I don't have an Infinity Gauntlet prop, but that's the whole tag, is Thanos has a glove. Woo! I guess that, I mean, that doesn't make sense to me, because didn't he have to murder like a shitload of giant dwarves? Anyway, whatever, I'll see you next time. This is my Infinity Gauntlet. Ah.
Earlier in the review, you said, and would have been better if they had killed Quicksilver. You did a little.
I fucked up.
Yeah, but you can just edit this conversation and
I intend to.
Out.
Yeah. Do you have a glow?
This movie's kind of fine, I guess, but it's not that great, but it's pretty okay. Like, kind of good, but not really great, and it's fine.
Thought you didn't want to talk about Marvel's The Avengers 2.
I don't believe it's called that.
Okay.
Marvel's Avengers, Age of Ultron.
2.
Oh, there was a first Age of Ultron?
17. The Age of Ultron's about a week and a half.
Yeah. Wouldn't call that so much an age. Definitely not an era.
I need a butt pillow.